Emma Callahan never imagined she would see her husband, Andrew Callahan, one of the city's richest men, walk through their front door with another woman on his arm. In that single, shattering moment, her entire world flipped upside down, setting off a storm of buried lies, tangled loyalties, and shocking truths, with the family name and fortune hanging by a thread. Emma was thrown onto a road paved with heartbreak and revenge. Before it was over, trust would be broken, and hearts destroyed beyond repair. Emma Callahan hadn't come from a life of luxury. She grew up on the outskirts of Silver Valley, a town famous for its rolling hills, charming cottages, and the upscale neighborhoods where luxury cars glided down the roads on Sunday afternoons. While many of her childhood friends dreamed of marrying into wealth and climbing the social ladder, Emma wished only for a small but warm life where love meant more than money. She had a gentle heart. She believed kindness could close any gap between people born into different worlds. Her father, Henry Parker, was a mechanic, good with engines, quick to find what others missed, but always drifting off into daydreams instead of sticking to routine. Whenever Emma visited his little workshop, he would fill her ears with stories about the wealthy clients who came in, complaining about rattling brakes on their imported cars. She always caught a special light in his eyes whenever he spoke of that glittering world. Despite their simple life, he always urged her to look past the worn-out front door and imagine more for herself. Emma's mother, Margaret Parker, was a gentle and giving woman who taught Emma that true happiness came from giving, not receiving. Their small house was packed with secondhand furniture and the smell of plain but hearty meals, yet the Parker home radiated a warmth and honesty that stayed with Emma forever. From her mother, she learned the quiet strength of compassion, something she would carry all her life. Emma was 19 when she first met Andrew. Andrew Callahan first laid eyes on Emma at a charity gala hosted by the influential Bennett family. She was there as a volunteer, refilling snack trays and serving drinks, content to stay on the sidelines while elegant men and women mingled, draped in shimmering jewels and polished smiles. Andrew, who had just become a billionaire thanks to a series of lucrative tech ventures, noticed Emma from across the crowded hall. He was more than 10 years older than her, tall and sharply dressed, exuding the quiet confidence of a man who always got what he wanted. When Emma tripped slightly in her volunteer shoes, nearly sending a tray of wine glasses crashing to the floor, Andrew was at her side in an instant. He caught the tray just before it tipped, and when their eyes met, it felt like something out of a fairy tale. He smiled at her, his heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in years. Emma's face turned pink, her breath unsteady from the close call. In that moment, the gap between their worlds didn't seem to matter at all. Within a few months, Andrew was making frequent visits to the Parkers' modest house. He would spend hours chatting with Henry about old cars, even offering to help fund a restoration project at the little mechanic shop. He brought Margaret fresh tulips every Sunday, her favorite flower, and before long, he was like family. When Andrew asked Emma to marry him a year later, no one in the Parker household doubted for a second that he truly loved her. Their wedding, held in the blooming gardens of the Callahan estate, became the talk of both Silver Valley and the nearby city. Emma, glowing in a simple white dress, believed with her whole heart that love could bridge any divide between two different lives. But as the years passed, the spark that once lit up their romance began to dim. Andrew's business empire consumed almost all his time. He traveled constantly, Paris for board meetings, Tokyo for negotiations, Dubai to attract new investors. Emma's messages would often go unanswered for hours, sometimes days. Many nights, she sat up alone, the soft light of a single bedside lamp casting long shadows as she listened for his footsteps in the hall. Still, Emma refused to give up hope. She clung to the belief that patience and understanding could mend what was slipping away. To her, Andrew was still the kind man who once caught her tray and won her parents' trust. But she would soon discover that love by itself could not close the growing distance between two hearts. Inside the sprawling Callahan mansion, Emma felt at once like royalty and a prisoner. The grand estate sat high on a hill, with sweeping views of the city skyline. Wide marble steps led into a vast foyer crowned with a chandelier that sparkled even in the gray dawn. Endless hallways branched off into rooms so numerous that Emma hadn't stepped into half of them, each one a quiet reminder of Andrew's immense wealth and her deepening loneliness. Despite the grandeur of Andrew's wealth, the endless luxury did little to ease Emma's loneliness. Andrew Callahan had a reputation for turning floundering businesses into success stories. While Emma admired his drive, she hated the late-night phone calls and the whispered arguments with his partners about problems that always seemed to crop up. She resented the way he would slip out of bed before dawn, off to catch a private jet somewhere, leaving behind only a quick, apologetic note. At first, Emma tried to create her own purpose. She launched charity programs for underprivileged kids, hoping meaningful work might fill the silence at home. While Andrew traveled the world, she mingled with a handful of wealthy philanthropists who were friendly until they learned where Emma had come from. "Isn't she just a mechanic's daughter?" one woman murmured at a luncheon, pretending to compliment Emma while cutting her down in the same breath. Emma forced a polite smile, pretending she hadn't heard, but the words left a bruise on her heart. Some nights, after putting away yet another half-eaten dinner, Emma would lie awake in their king-sized bed, staring at the empty side where his warmth should have been. She would listen for his key in the door long past midnight, the soft tick of the hallway clock growing louder with every hour he didn't come home. Sometimes she pressed her pillow to her chest, hugging it tight, just to fill the cold space beside her. In those moments, the vast mansion felt less like a home and more like a gilded prison, echoing back her unspoken fears and loneliness. The distance between husband and wife widened slowly but unmistakably. Andrew's surprise flowers and lavish gifts never quite silenced the doubts growing inside Emma. She tried, again and again, to tell him how she felt, but her worries always competed with his endless business calls and overseas meetings. Whenever they did talk about the future, Andrew promised that once the company settled, they'd finally have time together. Emma clung to that hope until the company only grew larger, opening more offices, making bigger deals, demanding even more of him. One afternoon, desperate for a piece of her old, simpler life, Emma invited an old family friend, Claire Munro, over for lunch. Claire had known Emma back when she was juggling shifts as a grocery store clerk, before Andrew swept her into a world she'd never imagined. Claire was practical, sharp-eyed about life's flaws, but loyal to the bone. As they sat in the lavish Callahan dining room, Claire studied Emma's forced smile and the pristine silverware arranged like museum pieces. "How are you really holding up?" Claire asked gently, eyeing Emma across the polished table. Emma fidgeted with her napkin. "I'm fine," she said at first, then sighed as her shoulders dropped. I miss Andrew. He's never here anymore. It's always another meeting, another crisis. Sometimes I wonder if there's even a place for me in his life now." Claire reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Then tell him that. He might be busy. But you're his wife, Em. He needs to hear it." Staring into Claire's kind eyes, Emma felt a tight ache in her chest. She promised herself she would tell Andrew exactly how she felt that night, if he came home at all. But Andrew didn't come home that night, or the night after. All Emma received was a short, cryptic text from Matt, "Delay in Munich. Will explain when I'm back. Love you." Emma stared at Andrew's message, her mind spinning. She hated how foreign his routine had become, how she had started to fear there might be more than just business trips keeping them apart. She wasn't ready to put a name to it, not yet. Was it just work, or was something darker lurking behind all his excuses? It was a blustery afternoon, storm clouds gathering above the city skyline, when Emma first felt the truth pressing down on her marriage. Andrew had come back from Munich that morning but offered no real explanation. He paced the mansion's halls aimlessly, and even the household staff, usually discreet and calm, exchanged uneasy glances when his sharp voice echoed from one room to another. All afternoon, Emma tried to calm her mind, but doubt crawled like ice through her veins. She sat by the window for hours, watching the trees bend in the wind, replaying every sign she might have ignored. Missed calls, vague excuses, that distant look in his eyes when she caught him daydreaming of numbers and deals instead of her. Her chest tightened with an ache that words couldn't ease. That evening, Emma gathered what courage she had left and went to confront him. She found him in his office, staring blankly at a cluttered laptop screen. Papers were scattered everywhere, and the normally spotless desk looked as if a storm had hit it. "Andrew," she began, her voice steady but her heart pounding. "We need to talk. What's going on with you lately?" He didn't look up. "I'm buried right now, Em. Not now, please." The way he brushed her off made something inside her snap. She had waited too long. She stepped closer, her frustration rising. "We've been avoiding this for months. I can't keep living like this, pretending everything's fine when it's not." Finally, Andrew lifted his eyes. They were bloodshot, the lines around them deepened by too many sleepless nights. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw guilt flicker across his face. "It's complicated," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "I'm negotiating with new investors. It's risky, Emma. These deals could secure our future for the next 10 years. A bitter laugh escaped her. "Andrew, do we really need more money? We have this estate, the cars, staff for every little thing, but I feel like I'm losing you. Maybe this isn't just about business anymore." She saw the way he stiffened, his whole posture tightening like he was bracing for impact. "There's nothing else," he said, his eyes darting away from hers. "It's the business. We're about to launch a huge IPO. Once it's done, we'll be unstoppable." Every instinct Emma had screamed at her that there was more he wasn't saying. She pressed him, trying to read the truth in his face, but he shut down completely, standing and walking out of the office without another word. She watched him go, her pulse racing, dread gnawing at her chest. That night, sleep refused to come. All she could see behind closed eyes was the emptiness she'd glimpsed in his stare, and the storm outside matched the one raging inside her. By the next afternoon, the storm finally broke. Emma sat alone in the living room, listlessly flipping through TV channels on the enormous screen, her mind far away. Thunder cracked in the distance, heavy rain pounding the windows. The long driveway that curved up to the mansion glistened under flashes of lightning. Then she heard the familiar growl of an engine. She peered out just in time to see Andrew's sleek black Mercedes turning in. Relief washed over her. He had barely been home in days. She hurried to the foyer, hoping to greet him, maybe even finally talk things through. But the moment she saw him step out of the car, her heart dropped like a stone. From the passenger seat emerged a tall, striking woman with long chestnut hair that framed her sharp features. She glanced around curiously before her gaze settled on the mansion. Andrew paused by the car door, as if deciding whether to go in first. Then, in a moment that would forever burn itself into Emma's memory, he gently placed his hand on the woman's lower back, guiding her forward. The familiarity of the gesture sliced through Emma like a blade. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Emma stood frozen behind the glass front door, her hands trembling violently. Part of her wanted to fling the door open and scream. Another part wanted to run and hide so Andrew wouldn't see her like this. But she couldn't move at all. Thunder rumbled overhead, drowning out the sound of her ragged breaths. The door swung open, and Andrew froze mid-step when he saw her standing there. His eyes darted quickly to the woman at his side. She was immaculately dressed in a tailored black trench coat, and the cool detachment in her eyes made Emma's skin crawl. "Emma," Andrew began, his voice tight, "I didn't expect you to be here." Pain twisted her face. How could her own husband not expect her to be home? She felt the walls pressing in on her, squeezing the air from her lungs. Somehow she found the strength to speak, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Who is this Andrew?" He hesitated, swallowing hard. This is Vanessa Reed. She's an investor. We had urgent matters to settle." Emma wasn't foolish, even if part of her still clung to the faint hope that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. "Investor?" she repeated, her eyes narrowing on Vanessa's face. There was the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of Vanessa's lips. Rainwater dripped from her coat, leaving dark spots on the marble floor. Andrew shot Vanessa a tense glance. "We needed privacy to talk," he explained quickly, the words tumbling out too fast. "I was going to text you." Emma turned fully to Vanessa. "You're here for business, right?" she asked, her voice cracking. Vanessa looked her up and down with an expression Emma couldn't read. "Yes," she said, her tone crisp, almost mocking. "Strictly business, Mrs. Callahan." But her eyes said something entirely different, a glimmer of victory that made Emma's stomach knot in on itself. She stepped back, numb, letting them pass. The household staff hurried behind them, offering Vanessa a towel she barely acknowledged. Andrew led Vanessa down the hall toward his private study, disappearing around the corner without another word. She said she was pressed for time and leaving the country tomorrow. She needed to see the personal side of my life to fully trust me. You have no idea what's on the line, Emma. We're talking billions here. Billions, Emma echoed bitterly, her voice quivering. Everything is about money to you now. When did that happen? Andrew shot her a desperate look, silently begging her not to blow this up. But Emma felt like her heart was being ripped straight out of her chest. Stunned, humiliated, and above all, furious that he would parade another woman through her home as if she were invisible. She wanted to demand answers, to scream at him until the walls shook. But fear sealed her lips shut as the rain pounded the windows. She turned and fled to the living room, hot tears threatening to spill. The hours dragged by while the storm slowly eased outside, but inside the Callahan mansion, the tension only thickened. Emma wandered the halls, pacing back and forth, catching the faint murmur of voices drifting from behind the closed door of Andrew's study. She didn't dare barge in. She was too afraid of what she might see or hear. Every echo of Vanessa's laugh behind that door was a dagger twisting deeper into her ribs. She clenched her fists at her sides, whispering to herself in the dark, "I won't be weak. I won't let her steal everything I've built here." But her own voice sounded small and cracked, swallowed by the cavernous walls that seemed to mock her resolve. Still, dread gnawed at her insides. This woman, Vanessa, felt like the living proof of every fear Emma had tried so hard to bury. Close to midnight, Vanessa finally emerged from the study, with Andrew right behind her. Emma ducked behind a tall marble pillar to stay hidden. She watched as Andrew walked her to the front door, their shadows spilling across the floor under the glow of the grand chandelier. Vanessa clutched a black leather folder, likely stuffed with whatever documents they'd been whispering about all night. Emma caught a fragment of their exchange. "We'll wrap up the last details soon," Andrew said softly. "I hope next time we can avoid any complications," Vanessa replied, her tone like ice dripped in sugar. A surge of anger burned in Emma's veins. The words hit her like a slap. She watched as Vanessa stepped into the waiting car, which slipped silently down the long driveway until its headlights vanished into the night. Emma stepped out from her hiding spot, arms crossed tight over her chest. The sound of her heels on the marble made Andrew spin around, looking like he'd aged a decade in one evening. "Emma," he started, voice gentle, hands slightly raised. "We need to talk," she said coldly. Her silence after that was louder than any accusation. He led her back into the living room and flicked on a lamp. The soft light spilled across Emma's tear-streaked face, illuminating every raw edge of her pain. "She's an investor," Andrew repeated, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. "She's key to this new project, a huge international merger. I had to close it myself. You have to believe me. This is our company's future." Emma's hands trembled at her sides, fury barely contained. "Then why did you bring her here? Into our home? Without a word to me?" Emma's eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. "Business meetings belong in offices or boardrooms, or a hotel lounge, fine, but not in our living room. Not like this." "I know," Andrew said, genuine regret creeping into his voice. Vanessa insisted. "And that made it more important than our marriage?" Emma shot back. Andrew's face fell. He reached for her, but she stepped away before his fingers could graze her arm. "I'm sorry," he said, frustration leaking into his tone. "I never meant to hurt you. Yes, the money matters, but not just for me, for us. For our future, for our kids' future, if we decide to have them." At that word kids, Emma felt her chest tighten so hard it hurt to breathe. How could he talk about children when their marriage was cracking apart right in front of them? She thought of her parents, Henry and Margaret, who had next to nothing but loved each other fiercely all the same. Bitterness welled up like poison in her throat. "Don't you dare talk about kids," she snapped. "You're never even here." Andrew swallowed, tears burning at the corners of his eyes. "I know I messed up, Emma. Please, let's work this out, together." Part of her wanted to fling the front door open and run into the storm outside, away from this beautiful, suffocating house and the man who kept tearing her heart in two. But she couldn't. This was still her home. And despite everything, she still loved him. So instead, she turned her back, wrapping her arms tightly around herself like armor. "I'm so tired, Andrew. I can't do this tonight." That night, Emma curled up alone in the guest room, staring into the darkness while her mind tormented her with questions. Had Andrew really brought Vanessa here only for business? Or was there something deeper, darker, more personal behind those hushed conversations? Morning brought an uneasy stillness. Andrew was gone before dawn, off to meetings or more frantic damage control. She didn't know anymore. Emma sat alone at the breakfast table, a slice of toast growing cold on her plate, uneaten. She couldn't stand the thought of pacing the halls all day, reliving Vanessa's icy smirk and Andrew's half-baked excuses. Needing air? Needing something real? She grabbed her keys and drove across town to a small cafe tucked into the older side of Silver Valley. She pulled out her phone and dialed an old number. Robert Chen. Robert had known Emma since high school. Like her, he'd come from humble beginnings but found a gift for international trade that turned him into a self-made millionaire by his late 20s. Even with all his success, he stayed grounded, steady, loyal, never judgmental. Within half an hour, Robert pushed through the cafe door, worry etched across his face. Dressed in jeans and a wrinkled button-down, hair a bit unkempt, he looked nothing like Andrew's perpetual polished version of power. He slid into the chair across from Emma without wasting a second. "What's wrong?" he asked, leaning in, eyes locked on hers. "You sounded desperate on the phone." Tears threatened to spill from Emma's eyes, but she forced herself to stay composed. In halting, broken sentences, she told Robert everything: Vanessa's sudden appearance, Andrew's cagey excuses, and the crushing betrayal that still made her chest ache. Robert listened closely, his expression darkening with every word. "That's unacceptable," he said flatly. "Business or not, Andrew has no right to bring another woman into your house like that." Emma nodded, feeling a fleeting sense of relief at Robert's outrage on her behalf. "He keeps insisting it was all business, but I don't know. Something about Vanessa just feels wrong. The way she looked at me, like I was the outsider, not her." Robert leaned back in his chair, letting out a slow breath. "I know who Vanessa Reed is. She's a big name in international investments. Rumor is she's ruthless, doesn't stop at business if she wants something or someone." A chill swept through Emma. What if what she wants is Andrew? Robert's frown deepened, worry creasing his forehead. "I won't sugarcoat it. It's possible. But the real question is, what's Andrew doing about it? He should know better than to blur professional lines like this." Emma bit down on her lower lip, replaying Andrew's pleading apologies in her mind. He seemed genuinely sorry. He said he's under enormous pressure. Maybe he doesn't even realize Vanessa has other intentions, or maybe... She sucked in a breath. Maybe he does. Robert's eyes flickered with protective anger. "Emma, I hate seeing you like this. I know you still love him, but you can't keep letting him shut you out." They sat quietly for a moment, the low hum of clinking coffee cups and quiet conversations swirling around them. Somehow, being across from Robert made Emma feel anchored, a small link to the part of her life that had nothing to do with power or money. She lowered her gaze to her hands curled tightly around her coffee mug, her knuckles white. Part of her wanted to run far away and never look back, but another part burned with a stubborn fire that refused to let Vanessa win so easily. She could feel her pulse hammering at her temples, her breath tight with dread but also a resolve she hadn't known she still had. After a long pause, Robert spoke again. "Do you want me to dig into Vanessa? I have people who can discreetly get you real information. Whatever you decide, Emma, knowledge is power." A wave of relief and gratitude washed over her. "Yes," she whispered. "I need to know. All of it." Robert squeezed her hand gently. "I'll make a few calls. In the meantime, stay strong, and remember you're not alone in this." Emma left the cafe feeling a little braver with Robert in her corner. But the knot in her stomach never eased. Deep down, she knew she was stepping into a fight for more than just her marriage. It was for the future she'd built piece by piece with Andrew. While Emma tried to carry on and avoid drawing gossip, whispers about Vanessa's connection to Andrew were already trickling through the city's most elite circles. The same wealthy philanthropists who had once whispered that Emma didn't belong now had fresh fuel for their gossip. Word spread that Vanessa Reed was more than just an investor. She was a siren who had wrapped countless businessmen around her finger. And now, Andrew was her newest prize. Despite Emma's growing suspicions, Andrew kept swearing there was nothing inappropriate going on. He dismissed the rumors as petty jealousy and reminded her again and again that Vanessa was critical for sealing the massive merger. Emma wanted so badly to believe him, but with every new rumor, her trust frayed thinner and thinner. Even her mother, Margaret Parker, noticed the shift in her daughter. One evening, Emma sat in her childhood living room, crying softly as Margaret stroked her hair. "Your father and I have been married for 30 years, Margaret said gently. "Trust and respect, sweetheart. Those are the roots of a marriage. If you feel something's wrong, don't ignore that feeling. Speak up." But speaking up to Andrew felt like yelling into a hurricane. He was always on the move, always stepping out to take yet another urgent call. So Emma waited, choking back her doubts. Days crawled into a week without any sign of Vanessa at the house. Emma dared to hope maybe the crisis was passing. One late afternoon, craving a break from her restless thoughts, Emma wandered into the garden to cut fresh roses. The warm sun and the scent of earth gave her a few precious moments of peace, until she heard a car door slam near the side entrance of the mansion. Curiosity tangled with dread as she crept around the hedge. Her breath caught when she saw Vanessa stepping out of a sleek silver sports car, her high heels clicking sharply on the drive. Beside her stood Andrew, deep in animated conversation. Emma ducked behind the tall rose bushes, pressing low to stay hidden, her ears straining to catch their words. "The board's still hesitant," Andrew was saying, sounding tired. "They think finalizing this deal right now is too risky." Vanessa's laugh cut through the air, cool, sharp, dripping confidence. "They're idiots. This is the perfect time to strike. You and I both know it, Andrew. You just need to convince them, show them the future." Andrew nodded, but looked drained. "It's not that simple, Vanessa. They want the entire roadmap, projections, numbers, user data. It's a global play, and they want every angle locked down." Vanessa shrugged, stepping closer. She rested her hand on his shoulder, and he didn't move away right away. "You're going to make billions from this, Andrew. Don't let fear stop you." That soft, possessive touch made Emma's stomach twist into knots. She could barely believe what she was seeing. Right there, in broad daylight. Suddenly, the truth slammed into Emma like a tidal wave. She couldn't stay hidden or silent any longer. Stepping out from behind the rose bushes, she strode straight toward them, her cheeks flushed with anger. Vanessa's hand dropped from Andrew's shoulder the second she noticed Emma approaching. A flicker of annoyance crossed Vanessa's face before she smoothed it over with a polite, sugary smile. "Hello, Mrs. Callahan," Vanessa said, her tone dripping with false civility. "I was just going over some urgent business with your husband." Emma ignored her completely, her eyes locked on Andrew's. "You promised me you'd handle this somewhere else," she said, her voice trembling with rage. Andrew froze, clearly torn between defending himself and diffusing the situation. Vanessa needed to run through some last-minute figures. "You keep saying that," Emma snapped, her words breaking with tears she couldn't hold back. "How many more times is she going to just show up out of nowhere? How many more times are you going to let her walk into our life, our marriage, like she owns it?" Vanessa watched the couple with a faintly amused smirk, as though Emma's raw pain was a mild entertainment. "I assure you, Emma, there's nothing inappropriate happening here," Vanessa said smoothly. "This is strictly professional." Emma wanted to scream at her hypocrisy, but the words stuck in her throat. She caught the glint of triumph in Vanessa's eyes, a look that made Emma's stomach turn. Andrew stepped between them, his arm guiding Emma back toward the house. "Let's take this inside," he said firmly, giving Vanessa an apologetic nod. "Vanessa, I'll see you next week at the board meeting." Vanessa turned on her heel, tossed Emma a final, pointed glance, then slipped back into her sports car. The engine roared to life, kicking up a swirl of dust as she disappeared down the drive. Inside, the mansion's grand foyer suddenly felt like a prison. "I can't do this anymore," Emma whispered, her voice shaking as tears filled her eyes. "I can't keep letting her into our home, into our marriage." Andrew exhaled heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "But I need her investment, Emma. We're at the final stage. Once it's done, she won't have any reason to be here." Emma's voice cracked with desperation. "How can you be so sure? And why does she have so much power over you?" He didn't answer right away, and the silence made her panic twist tighter in her chest. Finally, he muttered, "Because she could destroy everything. She's used to getting exactly what she wants." A chill crawled down Emma's spine. "And what does she want, Andrew?" He shook his head, lips pressed into a hard line. "It's complicated," he said finally, then softer. "This deal isn't just about money. It's the brand, the tech expansions, the influence. Vanessa has contacts that could put us years ahead of our competitors." Emma's voice was barely audible. "And what about us? Does she want you, or your money, or both?" Andrew looked away, silent. In that crushing quiet, Emma felt her whole world slip. The man she once believed was her forever was drifting beyond her reach. And in that moment, she knew. She had to find out the truth, no matter what it cost. Emma waited anxiously for Robert Chen's update, her heart pounding every time her phone buzzed. When his call finally came, her pulse spiked so hard she thought she might faint. They arranged to meet at a discreet lounge across town, somewhere quiet, away from curious eyes and wagging tongues. Emma arrived early, nerves frayed raw, only to find Robert already settled in a secluded corner, a thick folder resting on the table in front of him. He stood up as soon as he saw her, worry etched deep in his expression. "Sit down, Emma," he said gently. "We need to talk." She slipped into the chair across from him, her hands clasped so tight in her lap they ached. "What did you find?" Robert opened the folder, flipping through a stack of documents. "My contacts dug up everything they could. On paper, Vanessa Reed is a powerhouse investor, the kind who pulls off international deals like it's nothing. But underneath, it's shady, very shady. There are whispers about blackmail, hush money, broken engagements. She's been tied to at least 3 high-profile executives in the last few years. Every time, she walked away with a big piece of their companies." Emma felt the color drain from her face. "Are you saying she's blackmailing Andrew?" Robert hesitated. "I can't say for sure, but there's a pattern. She makes these men feel like she's their secret weapon. She promises explosive growth for their companies, then wraps them so tight they can't pull out without destroying everything they built." A cold shiver crawled up Emma's spine. "Andrew's gambling everything, his reputation, our marriage. Why? He's already rich. He doesn't need more." Robert sighed, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "You know how this world works. For some men, it's not about money anymore. It's power, bragging rights, owning the biggest empire on the block." Emma clenched her fists under the table. "Do you think she's sleeping with him?" Robert winced, pain flickering in his eyes. "I don't have solid proof of that. But Vanessa blurs lines. She's known for making business personal. She's dangerously good at it. I'm sorry, Emma." The room seemed to spin. Emma sucked in a breath, fighting to keep herself steady. She forced herself to look at the folder again, even though her stomach twisted at every photo and signature inside. A voice in her mind whispered she should just walk away, find her own peace. But a hotter, sharper part of her roared back. Not yet. Not like this. She would not hand her life to Vanessa on a silver platter. I can't let her ruin my marriage, and I won't let her drag Andrew into some corporate disaster he can't escape. Robert closed the folder with a soft thud. You might have to confront her yourself, or force Andrew to choose, his marriage, or this deal. Tears burned the back of Emma's eyes, but she forced them away. If I push too hard, he might run straight to her. I have to be careful. Robert's gaze softened with empathy. Then we expose Vanessa for what she is. If the board and the media see her true colors, she loses her hold on Andrew. But this could get ugly, Emma. Emma's jaw tightened with resolve. I don't care how ugly it gets. I care about saving my marriage. If there's even anything left to save. That weekend, Andrew announced he was hosting a small gathering at the mansion for key stakeholders, no doubt at Vanessa's urging. Emma's jaw clenched when she read the guest list. Vanessa's name sat right at the top, bold as brass, and Emma's own name appeared beneath it, labeled politely as spouse. The sheer gall of it made her blood boil. Determined not to shrink away, Emma chose a simple yet elegant gown that highlighted her quiet strength and unshakable poise. When she stepped out of her dressing room, Andrew was waiting in the hallway. His eyes drifted over her, and for a fleeting second, she saw the old spark of admiration he used to have for her. "You look beautiful," he said softly, momentarily caught off guard. Emma offered him a thin, controlled smile. "Thank you." They descended the sweeping staircase side by side. In the grand foyer below, catering staff moved briskly, arranging flutes of champagne and artfully plated hors d'oeuvres. The main living area had been transformed into a polished, intimate venue with soft lighting and mellow instrumental music drifting through the air. Guests began arriving in a steady flow. Board members, wealthy entrepreneurs, a few celebrities with ties to the Callahan philanthropic initiatives. Emma offered polite greetings, her eyes always scanning, searching for her. She finally spotted Vanessa near the bar, laughing with a cluster of men who hung on her every word. She wore a sleek black gown, her hair pulled into an elegant twist, the very picture of practiced power. Before Emma could decide how to approach, Vanessa disengaged from her audience and crossed the room straight toward her. They met in the center of the open space, tension crackling between them. "Mrs. Callahan," Vanessa purred, her lips curving into a smile that never touched her eyes. "You look exquisite tonight." "You too," Emma replied evenly, keeping her voice calm. "Enjoying the party?" Vanessa asked, sweeping her gaze around the room. "It's lovely, though not as private as I pictured. But then, Andrew has always been generous, with everything, his time, his affection." She let the words dangle like a poisoned hook. Emma's cheeks burned with anger. "What exactly is your game, Miss Reed?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp. Vanessa's eyes glimmered with cold amusement. She leaned closer, her tone so quiet it nearly vanished into the hum of music and chatter. "Business, of course. I've made that very clear. But if you're afraid of losing your husband, darling, maybe it's time to step up your game." A wave of fury rose so fast, Emma almost choked on it. She forced herself to stand tall. "Don't underestimate me. I know exactly what you are," she shot back. Vanessa's laugh was soft and chilling. "My dear, you have no idea what I'm capable of." With that, she turned and glided away, her hips swaying like a cat that knew it owned the room. Emma stood frozen, pulse thundering in her ears. Her eyes darted through the crowd until they found Robert Chen, who had come at Emma's special request. Dressed in a sharp suit, he raised his glass slightly when he caught her gaze. She signaled discreetly for him to follow. They slipped into a quiet corner, half shielded by tall potted plants and shadowed drapery. "That woman has basically declared war," Emma whispered, her voice quaking with barely contained rage. Robert's eyes were steely. He handed her a small device, the USB drive. "I managed to get my hands on something big," Robert explained in a hushed voice. "Emails showing Vanessa funneled money from her last deal. If the board sees this, they might rethink putting any trust in her. But it has to be revealed at exactly the right moment. If you rush it, she'll spin it all back on you." Emma's fingers closed tightly around the USB, her eyes hard as steel. "She's not going to destroy what I built with Andrew, not without a fight." Later that evening, the polite hum of the gathering gave way to tense, private negotiations in one of the mansion's lavish corners. A circle of powerful investors leaned in close, voices low, hanging on every word about finalizing the massive merger. Vanessa sat at the heart of it all, radiating control, her eyes flicking to Andrew whenever she wanted to underscore her authority. Emma lingered nearby, waiting for her chance. Robert stood a few feet away, ready to back her up. As they tossed around growth projections and plans for global integration, Emma's resolve settled like a stone in her chest. She stepped forward, her presence impossible to dismiss. "Excuse me," she said sweetly, her polite smile hiding the storm beneath. She looked straight at the gathered power players. "May I say a few words?" Andrew blinked, startled. "Emma." Vanessa arched a perfectly shaped brow, her smile tight and brittle. "Of course, Mrs. Callahan. By all means." Emma drew in a slow breath, steadying herself. She caught Robert's eye. He gave a small nod and quietly launched a presentation on a laptop positioned near the bar. The screen flickered to life, displaying a neat timeline of emails, wire transfers, and official letters, all stamped with Vanessa Reed's name. A hush fell over the group. All eyes swung to the glowing screen. "These documents," Emma began, her voice steady and crisp, "reveal certain irregularities tied to Miss Reed's prior ventures. Misleading statements, missing funds, diverted accounts, right before deals closed. A low ripple of shock spread through the room. Vanessa's face drained of color for a single delicious moment. Then she smoothed it over with a serene, dismissive chuckle. "This is ridiculous," she cooed, her tone dripping with forced calm. "Obvious forgeries. Someone is trying to tarnish my reputation." "They're authentic," Emma cut in firmly. She nodded at Robert, who gave a brisk nod of confirmation. "Your pattern speaks for itself, Miss Reed. Lies, manipulation, betrayal, again and again." One of the board members, a distinguished older man in a tailored gray suit, leaned closer to the screen, squinting at the evidence. "These appear genuine. If so, we have a very serious issue on our hands." Andrew stood rooted to the spot, all the color gone from his face. He stared at Emma as if he were seeing her clearly for the first time. "Emma, why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice low and raw. She looked at him, the heartbreak stark in her eyes. "Would you have listened?" Vanessa let out a laugh, thin and trembling at the edges, but the sound fell flat in the thick silence of the room. "This is a witch hunt, Andrew. Do something." Andrew's eyes flickered with a storm of guilt, disbelief, and helplessness. For a long, suffocating moment, he said nothing. Then he turned to the board members, who watched him like hawks, waiting for his next move. We need to investigate this," he said at last, his voice rough as he raked a trembling hand through his hair. "If these documents are real, we can't move forward with Vanessa's proposal until it's all verified." The room went silent, so thick with tension it felt like the air had weight. Vanessa shot to her feet, the icy veneer of calm splintering at the edges. "So that's it? You're just going to believe these lies over me?" Andrew swallowed hard, looking like a man about to drown. "I have to protect my company, Vanessa, if there's even a chance." She cut him off with a sharp, humorless laugh. Her eyes snapped to Emma, blazing with venom. "Well played. But listen carefully, dear Emma. Tonight you made yourself a very powerful enemy." Without waiting for a reply, Vanessa spun on her heel and stormed out, her stilettos striking the marble floor like gunshots in the silence. One by one, the investors exchanged uneasy glances and slipped away, murmuring about due diligence and damage control. Within minutes, the grand living room was a graveyard of half-empty glasses and abandoned plates. An hour later, Emma stood alone on the balcony, staring out at the estate's manicured gardens and the distant city lights flickering like restless stars. She had won. Vanessa was exposed. Andrew's company spared a disaster, but the victory felt hollow in her chest. Andrew had come so close to sacrificing their marriage at the altar of greed and ambition. The breeze brushed her face, carrying the scent of wet grass and the distant hum of traffic far below. She hugged her elbows tight, willing herself not to cry again. Not for him, not tonight. But when she heard footsteps behind her, her heart betrayed her resolve, thumping painfully at the hope that maybe, just maybe, he understood now. She heard quiet footsteps behind her and turned to find Andrew watching her, shame and gratitude tangled across his face. For a long heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then he stepped closer, his voice barely steady. "Thank you," he said hoarsely. Emma raised her brows, her tone sharp. "For what? Humiliating your star investor in front of everyone, or for saving your company's reputation from total ruin?" He let out a ragged sigh, dragging a hand down his face. "Both. I was so blinded by the promise of what she dangled in front of me. More power, more expansion. I let it drown out what really matters." A bitter laugh escaped Emma's throat. "And what does really matter to you, Andrew? Because I haven't felt like it's been me for a very long time." He reached for her hand, but she stepped back, arms folding over her chest like armor. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I lost sight of us. I swear to you, I didn't cheat. Not physically, but emotionally, I was halfway gone. I see that now." A single tear slipped down Emma's cheek. "You hurt me," she said, her voice raw. "You let her walk into my home, into my life, like she belonged here. And I just stood there like a fool." Andrew blinked back tears of his own, his regret plain on every line of his face. "I let greed and pride cloud my judgment. I never meant to push you away." Silence settled between them, heavy as stone. Down below, a soft breeze stirred the garden's fountains, the gentle trickle of water drifting up as a distant backdrop to their fragile conversation. "Emma?" Andrew said at last, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to fix this. I want to put you first. Really put you first." She looked at him, exhaustion etched deep into her eyes. "Is it too late?" she asked quietly, "because I don't know if I can trust you anymore. Not after all this." Desperation flickered across Andrew's face. "I'll do anything to earn it back. Please, Emma, just let me try." Emma shook her head, tears brimming. Memories of their wedding day, her naive hope and the fierce certainty that love could conquer anything, flashed through her mind like ghosts. All of it felt so heartbreakingly far away now. Maybe we need some time apart," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can't pretend we'll fix this overnight." Andrew's shoulders sagged, but he gave a small, resigned nod. "If that's what you need." She stepped past him, heart pounding, and went upstairs to pack a small suitcase. The staff she passed in the hallway lowered their eyes, sensing the raw storm raging behind closed doors. Before leaving, Emma paused in the grand foyer, turning back one last time. Her gaze locked with Andrew's from across the marble floor. No words, just a final, silent confession of heartbreak neither of them could undo. The news of Vanessa's abrupt exit from the high-stakes merger sent shockwaves through the business world. Some branded Andrew Callahan a fool for chasing off a star investor. Others praised him for rooting out corruption within his own ranks. Meanwhile, Emma found refuge at her parents' house, wrapped in the steady comfort of Henry and Margaret Parker. She spent long, quiet days there, her phone buzzing with unanswered calls from Andrew. His texts came at all hours, paragraphs of apologies, confessions, and promises that she read alone in her childhood bedroom, tears soaking her pillow. Her parents hovered close, worried but gentle, urging her to choose what felt right for her this time. Rumors spread that Vanessa was plotting a lawsuit or a media smear campaign, claiming she'd been defamed by forged evidence. The whispers only made Andrew's anxiety grow until he finally turned to the one person he still trusted outside Emma, Robert Chen. They met at a small, quiet bistro on the far edge of Silver Valley. Robert found Andrew a shell of the powerhouse he used to be, just a man now, stripped bare by regret and fear. Over coffee, Andrew spilled every fear in a rush, his voice low and tense. "What if she sues? What if she flips this? Those documents Emma used, they were stolen. I didn't have them legally. Vanessa could spin this against us in court." Robert took a thoughtful sip of his drink, eyes calm, though a flicker of concern passed behind them. "Don't worry about that. The evidence is rock solid. If Vanessa tries to fight back, we have enough to bury her credibility. She'd lose a lot more than she'd gain." Andrew's shoulders sagged in relief. "That's something at least. But what about Emma? She won't answer my calls. I'm losing my mind here, Robert." Robert pressed his lips together, choosing his words with care. "You put her through hell, Andrew. You can't force her to come back on your timeline. She has to decide when, if she's ready to talk to you again." Andrew nodded slowly, eyes distant and tired. "I know, but every day she's gone, it just makes it clearer. None of this, money, power, none of it means a damn thing without her. It's terrifying." Robert leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. "Then prove it. Don't just say you've changed. Show her. Let your actions speak louder than your apologies." That simple advice sparked a new desperation in Andrew. In the days that followed, he threw himself into good works in Emma's name, funding local charities she cared about, pulling out of several high-profile trips abroad, and even launching a scholarship program at Emma's old community college to help students from working-class families, just like she once was. Each gesture was a plea in disguise, a promise that he could be the man she'd fallen in love with again. But Emma stayed cautious. She saw the changes, but a quiet voice inside her warned that once his business world was stable again, he could slip right back to the man he'd become under Vanessa's influence. After weeks of silence and space, Emma finally agreed to see him, but only at a neutral place. A small city flower garden nestled among old brick paths and blooming rose beds. They had come here often when they were first married, when strolling hand in hand among the flowers felt like the greatest luxury in the world. Emma arrived in a simple sundress, her hair pulled into a loose ponytail. Andrew stood waiting in plain slacks and an open-collared shirt, looking more vulnerable than she'd seen him in years. They walked together slowly, the hush between them filled with the rustle of leaves and the quiet hum of bees among blossoms. At last, Emma broke the silence. "Why did you pick this place?" Andrew gave a faint, wistful smile. Because this is where we came when life was easy, when all we needed was each other. I want to remember what mattered to us back then. Emma paused beside a cluster of white lilies, her namesake flower, brushing her fingertips across a silky petal. I remember wanting a small house, maybe kids, a quiet life. And for a while after you proposed, it felt like a fairy tale. Her voice turned brittle. Then it didn't. Andrew stood next to her, hands deep in his pockets, his shoulders tense. I lost myself chasing bigger deals, bigger goals. I thought if I gave you everything it would mean something. But what you wanted was me, not the money. She closed her eyes, breathing in the sweet fragrance of the lilies around her. And if Vanessa hadn't shown her true colors, would you have ever realized how far you'd drifted? Andrew paused, looking down at the path beneath their feet. Maybe not. Maybe we needed this mess. It forced me to see that chasing success had turned into an obsession. It swallowed up everything good we built together. A single tear traced down Emma's cheek. I've been so angry with you. But I've missed you too. Andrew reached for her hand. This time she didn't pull away. I can't erase what I did, but I want to rebuild us, if you'll let me try. Emma searched his eyes, looking for any hint of the man she had fallen in love with. Slowly, she exhaled, feeling some of the tightness in her chest begin to loosen. I'm not ready to move back yet. I need us to get counseling to rebuild trust properly. It won't happen overnight, Andrew. He nodded quickly, his voice soft but sure. I'll do whatever it takes, therapy, time, space, whatever you need. I'm here for all of it. They kept walking slowly, talking in gentle murmurs about the little steps they might take to find each other again. The sun sank lower behind the city skyline, draping the garden in shades of gold and amber. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt a fragile seed of hope, pushing through the cracks in her hurt. Maybe, just maybe, with effort and patience, they could find their way back. But while Vanessa's immediate threat had faded, she hadn't disappeared entirely. Andrew's lawyers uncovered that she was quietly spreading rumors of defamation and blaming Emma for sabotaging the merger. Hints of a lawsuit started to ripple through back channels. During a tense video call, Vanessa and her legal team glared coldly from a polished boardroom. She accused Andrew of forging documents, claiming Emma had masterminded it all to ruin her reputation. Her demands, a public apology and a large payout to repair the damage. Andrew clenched his jaw, ignoring the cautious looks from his attorneys. You're not getting a cent from me. We have enough evidence of your past to fight this. And we will. Vanessa's smirk flickered, her eyes narrowing to slits. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I can drag you through court for years. Do you really think your precious Emma wants that nightmare hanging over her head? A fire sparked in Andrew's eyes. Leave my wife out of this. You won't win. Vanessa's gaze shifted, a flicker of something like respect or defeat passing through her cold composure. We'll see. But within weeks, Vanessa's legal threats fizzled out. Maybe she realized Andrew's legal team was just as ruthless as she was, or maybe she'd already set her traps for someone new. Whatever the reason, her exit felt like closing the final page of a dark, painful chapter in Andrew and Emma's story. The road to healing was far from smooth, a dramatic tale of romance and redemption. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep bringing you stories of love, resilience, and the power of second chances. Stay tuned for more heartfelt narratives, and never stop believing. Emma and Andrew began attending couples therapy, slowly digging up old wounds and resentments they had buried under years of miscommunication. Through guided exercises, they were forced to open up in ways that sometimes hurt, but ultimately healed. Andrew confessed that his relentless empire building came from a deep-seated fear of failing Emma, that he wouldn't be the provider he thought she deserved. Emma, in turn, admitted she had often felt like a stranger in his high-powered world, too proud or too scared to ask for help when she felt small and alone. Bit by bit, the walls between them began to fall. They spent quiet nights side by side in the kitchen, making dinner together, each meal a small act of teamwork and trust. Andrew rediscovered simple hobbies he had long abandoned in the chase for bigger deals. Reading late at night, tinkering with old woodwork projects. Emma threw herself back into her charitable work, this time with a clearer mission to bridge the gap between those with too little and those with too much. One evening, after returning home from another hard but hopeful counseling session, Emma found Andrew sitting alone in the living room, flipping through their old wedding album. She sat beside him on the couch, leaning in close. The page open before them showed a picture of their first dance under twinkling fairy lights, her face aglow as she looked at him like he was her entire world. "We looked so happy," she whispered, her voice soft. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her gently against his chest. "I want to feel like that again. Every day." Emma lifted her eyes to his, tears welling up despite her best efforts. "So do I." In that quiet moment, she saw just how far they had come, how close they had come to losing everything, and how much they had fought to bring it back. Their journey had been scarred by betrayal, anger, and deep pain, but it had also uncovered a truth neither of them could ignore. Their love, though battered, was worth fighting for. After weathering a storm of lies, broken trust, and raw confessions, Emma and Andrew stood side by side, ready to write the next chapter of their lives together. Their marriage had been shaken by greed, ambition, and the dangerous pull of temptation. But through it all, they rediscovered the core of what bound them together, a love stronger than wealth, deeper than pride. As they moved forward, hearts still healing, but full of cautious hope, they proved that even the most shattered relationships can be made whole again, with honesty, patience, and forgiveness. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If Emma and Andrew's story touched you, or if you believe in the transforming power of true love, stay with us for more tales of resilience and second chances. So the story has come to an end. Our wonderful friends, are you still here at this hour? If you're still listening, then I believe some part of Emma and Andrew's journey must have stirred your heart too. Maybe you see a bit of yourself in Emma's quiet strength, or perhaps you've tasted the loneliness that can creep into even the grandest love stories. What can we take away from this? Maybe it's this. Love is not just a feeling we whisper in candlelight, but a choice we make, again and again, even when it hurts. It's as Rumi once wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." For Emma and Andrew, their deepest wounds forced them to confront not just betrayal, but the shadows within themselves, fears, pride, unspoken regrets. And in doing so, they found a second chance worth fighting for. Sometimes, life pushes us to the brink, not to break us, but to show us what truly matters. Not the big house, or the billion-dollar deal, or the polished image we show the world, but the raw, imperfect love we share when no one's watching. If you're going through a storm of your own, hold tight to hope. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and trust is not rebuilt with empty words, but with small, honest actions every day. So tonight, if you feel a quiet ache in your chest, let it remind you that your heart still wants to believe, and that's something beautiful. Please, if this story moved you even a little, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories of love, resilience, and the courage to begin again. Stay with us, dear friends, for the next tale. And until then, may you never stop believing that even the most broken pieces can be made whole again. One brave choice at a time. Good night, and take care of your heart.